Hello, my name is Mary Beth Gilliam, and this is the Outperform Cancer podcast. Today's episode is about something I believe is absolutely critical to better cancer outcomes, and that is patient activation. There's now strong evidence that engaged, activated patients can have better outcomes. A large real world study of nearly 10,000 chemotherapy patients found that those who initiated communication with their care team, even just one message, were significantly more likely to be alive at 2 years and had fewer hospitalizations. This study, published in Cancer Medicine, aligns with several other studies, including research published in the Journal of Cancer Survivorship, showing that patient activation improves treatment planning, adherence, and satisfaction, especially when caregivers are also involved. In other words, how engaged you are in your care can directly impact your outcome. And yet, most patients are navigating one of the most complex experiences of their lives without the tools to truly participate. That's exactly the problem my guest today set out to solve. Samira Daswani is the founder and CEO of Manta Cares and a graduate of both MIT and Stanford. She's also a breast cancer survivor, diagnosed with stage 2 triple positive disease at just 30 years old. Like so many of us, she quickly realized that the hardest part wasn't just the treatment, it was the system, the fragmentation, the lack of guidance, and the overwhelming burden placed on families and patients. Out of that experience, she built Manta Cares, a platform designed to help patients understand their options, prepare for critical decisions, manage symptoms, and access both clinical and non-clinical support. But at its core, Manta Cares is designed to activate patients because, as Samira says in this conversation, the activated patient is the most underutilized resource in the entire healthcare system. And when patients are activated, when they really understand their disease, ask better questions, and participate in decisions, they don't just feel more in control, they have better outcomes. In this episode, we talk about Samira's personal journey, the gaps in cancer care that led her to build Manta Cares, and how tools like this can help patients move from overwhelmed to informed to empowered. Join me in welcoming Samira Daswani. Hello, Samira. Thank you so much for coming to the Outperform Cancer podcast. We can't wait to hear a little more about your story.
Thank you for having me. I'm very, very excited.
I'd love to start and just get you to talk about your experience with breast cancer. I know you have spoken about that before, but for those guests that don't know your story, I think it is so important to what we're going to our main topic, which is Manta Cares and this product that you've developed. So, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with breast cancer?
So I got diagnosed almost exactly 3 weeks after I turned 30 and ended up getting diagnosed with early stage triple positive breast cancer. So stage 2B back then. And this was about 6 years ago. And I ended up going through, let's see, a neoadjuvant chemotherapy, a lumpectomy, radiation, a full year of HER2 positive treatment. And then I am supposed to be on a long tail of endocrine therapy. The short version of the story is I got really angry at the system. Not so much in a weird way, I actually kind of made peace with the fact that I got diagnosed with cancer. I think it's probably the scientist in me. I kind of rationalized it away pretty quickly. The part, though, that really got under my skin was how much burden is put on patients and families.
Yeah.
Like going through cancer is bad enough, but you end up having to not just deal with like pretty rough treatment regimens, but you end up dealing with a system that is really not designed for you as a patient or a family member. And that frustration and anger ended up kind of over the course of the last 6 years has kind of morphed into this organization, Manta Cares, that we now run and lead and support others going through cancer.
Yeah. I had a similar experience, and I'm actually triple positive as well.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so we share that in common as well as some other things. I know that you are a diver. Is that right?
I'm a scuba diver. I've been diving since I was 10 years old, and I absolutely love the ocean. And hence my name for fish. So,
Well, am not a diver, but I was the chief operating officer of a marine robotics company for a number of years. So I have worked with Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute and Eric Schmidt's Schmidt Ocean Institute and many of the world's big research centers for our oceans. They run the technology that my company um, put together. So we share a love of the ocean, which is nice to share something positive and not just breast cancer.
oh, we need to have a full conversation about this, Mary Beth.
Y-
I'm
yeah.
on the edge of my seat, ready to ask you, I don't even know, 25,000 questions about what the exploration of Monterey Bay Canyon looked like and what you guys found. And I'm a definite nerd on this topic. So,
But we will carry that conversation offline. But I bring it up because when I was looking at the new Manta Cares app, I was really touched by the thoughtful introduction. And the introduction talks about patients feeling underwater. And I thought, that just really resonated with me, and it helped me understand the name Manta Cares, because clearly there's association to manta rays, right? Um, but a manta ray is also, a positive thing. Their bellies are the softest thing I've ever touched in my entire life. And I thought that putting all those things together were very interesting. So, can you tell us about how Manta Cares helps patients eliminate that feeling that they're drowning, and especially when they're first diagnosed?
it's a, I appreciate you saying that, by the way. We spend a lot of time thinking through how we might introduce someone in, because this is not just a digital app that you can scroll at midnight and look at least for me, husky videos, right?
Right.
It's a point of time where in your life there is a lot going on, and the vast majority of products, be it digital or physical or service or paper, are really not designed keeping you in mind. And our intention was very much to design something that is first and foremost designed for you, the patient, and then secondarily designed for you, a care partner, a caregiver, someone in the family who is sometimes taking on a lot of the burden of what the cancer patient is going through. So those were the two individuals we've spent almost the last 6 years actually designing for. So having said that, the way we think about, not the way we think about, I know this is how patients and families use Manta. There are four primary uses of Manta Cares: the app, the website, and either of those things. Use number one is to understand your diagnostic and treatment options. The vast majority of, we call them members, patients or caregivers in our platform, the vast majority of members who use our platform use it prior to making a diagnostic or treatment decision with their doctor. That is the vast majority of patients. So that's one.
Hmm.
Case number two is preparing for these appointments. These appointments, as I'm sure you relate, are really, really uh, anxiety inducing. They tend to be short. The average in the US is about 15 minutes max.
Yeah, it's so short.
And sometimes you're making some hard calls. Sometimes you're making calls that can feel irreversible. And sometimes you're making calls that are truly, they can feel like you're choosing life or death.
Yeah.
And today, at least, barring Manta Cares, I have not seen a digital product that is designed to help you, the patient or family, prepare for those appointments. So
Hmm.
that's the second use case. The third use case is side effects and symptoms. As I am sure everybody who's listening to this relates, cancer treatment or cancer itself can, I don't know, affect your physical and mental body. Just, maybe.
A lot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole episode in and of itself is all of the side effects. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
there's a lot, right? And it changes, right? If you're going through surgery, the cluster of things you're dealing with is different than if you're going through
Mhm.
chemo, is different if you're going through like an endocrine therapy or in
Mhm.
lung cancer target therapy. It just varies quite a bit.
Yeah, and I'll add that, as a metastatic patient, I'm in constant therapy, right? So, but I look, I'm going to say normal, right? I have hair because my therapy now is more targeted, so I'm past the chemotherapy part. So I look kind of like anybody else. So you wouldn't know about the symptoms if you were to just meet me on the street. And I throw that out there just because it's a weird feeling when you're not feeling well sometimes, but you look like you're fine.
Yeah.
And so I just put that out there because I think there's probably a lot of other cancer patients like me that, walk around kind of feeling like nobody has any idea.
Yes, it's almost like a double life.
Yes, it's like a
And
double life.
yeah, I very much relate, and we see it. We see it a lot. About 25% of all the members in our platform are dealing with metastatic disease, either
Mm,
cancer, those are the two that we support right now. And we definitely see it. We
mm,
see it in what they tell us. We see it in the experience that patients have and families have in our platform. That the double life is, especially today where treatment is good, right? Like you're
yeah,
looking for, like you have more time. It's really good, but there is this impact on life that is not always discussed and is not always reflected.
right, right.
And that,
Like my feet, I can barely feel them.
oh,
You know,
oh,
I've got neuropathy, and it's like, okay, I can hike, and I do get out there all the time, but, I have to be really careful not to trip, and I have to be thoughtful about it, and my shoes are fitting different, feel different, and I have to be there's all these considerations, and, I'm not gonna complain about it because here I am, right? Like, as a metastatic patient, you get excited just the fact that, "Hey, I'm here, I live a relatively normal life, and so I'm just so grateful." But it is kind of that double life, as you were saying. There's a side to it.
there is a side to it. A lot of my really close friends are dealing with metastatic disease, and I also see that there is this exhaustion that comes from it, right? Because there really isn't a milestone necessarily in sight, right? The
That's
milestone
right.
is definitive. So you're kind of almost in this like weird limbo state sometimes, and the limbo state is hard because everyone around you, to the point you're making, I think can sometimes be like, "Oh, everything's fine. You're back. You're good." But from a patient perspective, that I have yet to meet a patient where they say that.
Yeah, yeah, it is a little wild when there's no end to the medicine. There's no, so it is tricky. So side effects and symptoms, I'm glad that you're covering that at Manta Cares. And there was a fourth area that you were going to mention.
Non-clinical support. About 40% of the conversations with Hope AI is the AI partner in the Manta Cares platform, and we can talk about that later, I'm sure. But 40% of the time, Hope is surfacing in non-clinical support. And
Okay.
we just got the data a couple of weeks ago, roughly about 500 patients, all breast cancer across the country. And what we found is that the top four areas of non-clinical support, and I highly doubt this will be surprising to you, but I do think it's surprising to healthcare ecosystem broadly. But the top four areas are mental health.
Mm-hmm.
The second is sexual health.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
The third is financial toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth is needing peer support. Those are
Needing peer support.
the top four, at least in the, again, 500 patients, so not every single patient under our platform, but for that cohort of data set that we looked at, those were the four. Um, and I say that to say that, like, very, very often, we meaning healthcare broadly pushes that aside, right? You're dealing with cancer. Anti-cancer treatment is kind of the primary modality. our clinical appointments are really focused on that. But the reality is, all of us are going through life as well.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with life, life doesn't stop because you have cancer. Life actually just gets really, really complicated.
Right.
And there aren't tools that reflect that. There aren't
Right.
tools that reflect that I might be working and dealing with cancer. I may be retired, but my kids may be living in a different state. Like life scenarios that each of us are going through are very different from each other, and most tools don't reflect that.
Right. And I was thrilled to see when I was exploring Manta Cares, I can go and make an appointment with someone for support immediately. Like right now, anybody, all you out there, all the listeners out there, you can go to Manta Cares and they have a support opportunity where you can just use a calendar and sign up for a time. And I thought that was just amazing. Absolutely wonderful. Kudos.
Thank you. That was very intentional. And about 5% of our members will do that. So it's actually not as high as I at least anticipated. And
Hmm.
part of that is, I think, because we have Hope AI as well. So people usually default to Hope. And then if they really need to talk to someone, they can get on a call with us. All
Hmm.
of our advocates who are on the other side of the phone call are clinically trained or are scientists like myself or survivors. So there's either lived experience or present experience metastatic patients as well, um, or clinicians. The clinicians who are staffing the calls are not practicing medicine. So the goal is not to replace your doc in any shape or form. But it really comes back to that moment of I have a doctor, I may have a care team, but I don't know what I should be asking.
Right.
Or I'm worried, I don't really understand it. Or I'm looking for, we had someone who was dealing with a personal situation and this individual was looking for a shelter, right? So,
Uh-huh.
like, we just have a range, and this kind of goes back to each of us is grappling with different things, and the reason we built that tool, that service layer, is so that you know that you can reach out to someone if you want to talk to someone, and if you didn't
Yeah.
want to talk to someone,
Yeah.
Hope is there.
I think that's fantastic. I was just presenting. I live in Vermont. I was just presenting to a group in Montpelier, Vermonters taking action against cancer. And while I was there, I met a young woman who's 39. She has a 4-year-old. She was diagnosed with breast cancer and an absolutely lovely girl. And when I started talking to her, she burst into tears and she said, "I don't know why I'm crying. I never do this, but I heard your story and she connected with it, right? When I was first diagnosed, I was early stage and I had a child that was almost 4, and there's something about peer-to-peer support where you can let yourself go a
Yes,
little bit more, and it just feels like there's someone else who really
yes,
understands. And I think it's so healthy to be able to have those conversations. So I'm thank you so much for building that in. Do you think there's something that you can do within Manta Cares to help people understand what this can do for them or how this works? That's one question. And my follow-up question is, do you get to talk to that person a second time? Or so tell me how that pairing works. They may not understand that
yes.
currently.
Really good question. One, I think we suck at marketing. So let's just put it out there. No, 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 in all seriousness, in all seriousness, I do not think that is something that we are good at, for what it's worth. Uh,
It's to come, more to come on that front, right?
that is definitely the hope, yes. But as of right now, we're not good at it. I say that only to say that I think that translates sometimes into what we at least call discoverability. Right? Discoverability in the product means that we have all these things for you. How do we make sure we're highlighting the thing that matters to you the most right now? Right? Because each of us is going through this longitudinal dynamic experience, right? Like I may want to talk to someone today, but I may not want to talk to someone 3 weeks from now. I
Right.
may want to talk to someone 3 weeks from now, but I definitely do not want to talk to you today, right? So there is this dynamism of the experience that happens that at least our product today isn't great at this from a discoverability perspective. So that's one.
Hmm.
We designed the advocate, we call it the advocate feature, to give you at least 4 free appointments. So you can talk to someone up to 4 times. And if you need more than that, just tell us and we'll do it. It's not a hard cap. It's more of like we've done it so that you do know that you can talk to us multiple times and that you
Okay. And
get.
it's the same person. So if I made a connection with someone, I could request that same person.
Yes, you absolutely can. At the end of every call, we basically ask if you want to schedule another call. Sometimes we'll pull others in. Like there have definitely been points in time where, let's say, I am on the call with someone and we start talking about something clinical, and I'm not a doc. I'm like, oh man, like we really need to pull our chief medical officer in because he's much better suited to this kind of area of conversation we're having. So we pull him in. Same thing with actually side effects and drugs, right? Patients on a lot of drugs. So we have an oncology pharmacist on our team who will talk to you as well. And that's
Nice.
more around, hey, I'm grappling with this thing. I don't know if I should tell my doc. How do I think about it? Or I'm grappling with this thing. I don't think this is related to the actual treatment I'm on, but it just showed up. A lot of times patients don't want to tell their doc. We see that quite a bit. There's
Yes.
this like fear of like, I am worried that my dose will change or my treatment will change and I won't live longer. That there are fears in that sort of cohort of category. Anyway, so if you need to talk to someone like that, we'll pull the expert in. So we've really designed the advocate program to be comprehensive on at least most of the things that we see.
Everything that you've described has had, you're pulling a human in the loop. And so that complicates things. I mean, that having that staff, right, that's important. It's important to the patient, but I can understand from a business perspective, then that is a big consideration. So tell me how that's working. How do you help people with that? How do people know that they can reach out and say, is it always reaching out through that same portal of support?
Our volume, broadly speaking, is growing quite a bit. So I think we have about anywhere between 500 to 1,000 patients finding us every month right now, new patients.
Great.
So the volume's growing. So even 5% of that, to the point you're making, definitely means that we need to staff up on that side. And we've started staffing up on that side. Is it complicated? Yes. But so is cancer.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I think we have the easier problem right now, at least, than anything I dealt with in 2020 or 21.
Yeah.
So that's on the advocate side of the house.
So if you have a question and you're struggling with diagnostics or treatment decisions or something, do you come through Manta Care's portal for support, um, regardless of what you need support in, whether it's emotional support or advice on some clinical decision making, perhaps, like just how to think about things?
So short version is there's a yes and if you already have an account with our product, either the app or the web app, you can just sign in from there. If you sign in from there and ask for support, you'll get to the feature I think you described, which is the calendar, and you can just schedule it. Very often, we have patients who may not have an account with Manta who reach out to us. They just email help@mantacares.com. And the team that is supporting both, it's the same team. So it comes into the same inbox for us. So it doesn't really matter how you reach out to us. You're going to get to the same people.
Hmm.
Um, and then based on what you've reached out for, we will either triage on our side, or we'll just give you a call. So sometimes we will just respond and be like, hey, what's your phone number? This is mine. Can I just call you? That is, I would say maybe at least 1 or 2 a day is what we're doing right now. Um, because sometimes what we find is there is an initial question, but there's sometimes like 3 more behind that.
Sure, of course there are. Sure.
So it's like, and sometimes you may not be aware, right? Like sometimes you don't even realize that there are 3, 4 more. It's just because we're talking to so many patients, we see patterns, and
Yeah.
um, so sometimes we'll just call you.
That is amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the questions that patients have regarding diagnostics and treatment decisions because cancer care is changing. We are moving towards the what I consider the gold standard, which is precision medicine driven by very specific biomarker testing to really understand what the characteristics are of your particular cancer cells. And I am I'm a data person, not unlike you, I think.
Right.
And I just have seen, like, if you don't truly understand what's happening on a micro level, you cannot make macro change. And so I love to get a lot of data. Myself and in people that I'm talking to, I encourage them to know as much as you can about what is happening in your body. And then you can start to problem solve, right? So, you mentioned diagnostics or treatment decisions as one of the areas, was the number one area you were talking about in the four that you mentioned for Manta Cares. So, within that, do you have people talking about biomarker testing, and how are you counseling patients in this era of precision medicine?
I mean, amazing questions. I'm probably going to start with taking a bit of a step back. The core thesis, by the way, for Manta Cares is a little controversial if you think about it from a healthcare ecosystem perspective, because what we fundamentally believe is that the activated patient or caregiver or care partner, the activated patient or care partner is the most underleveraged stakeholder of the healthcare ecosystem.
I agree with that. Yes.
And I think the two words in there are activated, and the second is underleveraged.
Yes.
Activated for me is not just about information. Information today, at least, is so easily available, right? It's easy.
Sure.
You can Google it, use any Gen LLM tool, and you get information. But information is a prerequisite, right? You need to then understand that information, know what action to take on that information, and be comfortable to take that action.
Yes.
So I see Manta's job as activating you. The second is underleveraged. Underleveraged is really, really important because the question that I get very often from partners of ours, especially, is Samira, the doctor makes a call. And that statement, in all honesty, irks the crap out of me. Because I'm going, no. I don't think you know that. How do you know the doctor makes a call? Because the reality is, we as a healthcare ecosystem, be it a hospital system, be it a pharma company, be it a diagnostic company, be it an insurance company, are deciding that statement based on claims data and clinical data. Of
Yes.
course, the claims data will say the doctor made the call because they have to write the prescription. Of course. But
Right.
the reality is, I have not met a patient where that is a true statement.
Mhm.
Now, there are some calls the doctor has to make, of course. But in today's day and age, where you have access to information, I think patients are way more capable, way more intelligent, way more competent than the system gives them credit for.
Yes, I agree. I really believe in bringing the patient up in terms of understanding and education as opposed to dumbing the information down, which has not been working. That leads to feeling like you're underwater because it's so general. The information it doesn't tell you anything. So I believe in pulling them up, which is exactly what Manta Cares is doing. So I'm sorry, continue.
That's exactly right? So we start on the belief that the first belief is you are incredibly capable. That's like belief number one, right? Belief number two is it is our job to activate you, meaning give you the right tools so that you can make the calls that are right for you. It is not my place to judge the call, right? If you are someone who wants a double mastectomy or the lumpectomy, just as an example, it's Manda's job to support you, right? That's our job.
Yeah.
Our job is to make sure you understand the options, that you are feeling comfortable and confident in the decision you're going to make with the doc, right? That's what I mean by activation. All right. So those are the two kind of fundamentals. So I think the question you asked me was, how in the world do we do that? So very, very, the very first thing that happens with Meta is I think we spent 3 years, maybe 2 years, building the map, the first map. The map for us is really the foundation of the entire platform. Think of a map as a combination of guidelines, clinical wisdom, and patient experience. So let me just unpack that for a little bit, right? Clinical guidelines are essentially the body of knowledge that clinicians use to make treatment decisions and diagnostic decisions. in what is effectively called quote unquote standard of care. In the US, there are several guideline bodies. The two most common are NCCN and ASCO. So we essentially make sure that all of the information you are getting is what is called guideline concordant, meaning it aligns to the guideline. The second body of information we make sure is reflected in the map is clinical wisdom. Because especially in metastatic setting, very often the decision is patient choice and clinical choice. So the question becomes, how in the world do you as a patient and clinician make a decision when you may not have data in front of you?
Correct.
That's the wisdom, right? That's where we talk to lots of docs. We make sure the docs feel that the map is appropriate, that it's reflective, that the sequence in the map of the decisions you're going to come into are relevant. The information in the map is appropriate, right? So we spend a lot of time with docs. And the third is patient experience. My favorite example here is one of actually a metastatic patient again, and I'm not going to mention her name, but she's a fierce advocate in the space. And I remember asking her, hey, if you had to give someone guidance on their hair has fallen out but their scalp is itchy, what do you tell them? And she says, Samira, they should just use a lint roller. Now, a lint roller is something so simple. Anyone can have access to it. But that is not information your doc is going to tell you. That is not information that's going to come from your nurse. That's just not. Yeah, you just.
You mean like this?
There we go.
Lint roller? Like
Lint
this?
roller. Yes, ma'am.
On your head.
If you've lost hair, right? If you're dealing
If
with
you've
alopecia.
lost hair. Yeah. If you've lost your hair. That's fascinating. I had never heard that before.
So it's stuff like that. Now, how in the world will you stumble into that? Maybe you're on a Facebook group. Maybe you're looking at Reddit. Maybe you're searching and you find it. Maybe you talk to this person I'm talking about. But that kind of wisdom is sitting in our community and is not really codified. So
Right.
we try our level best to codify it and make sure that the information in the platform is relevant.
Nice.
So all of that is combined into the map. So the map is really the foundation. I say that to you because we have maybe about 60% of patients of ours will go into the map directly. They're like, okay, this is a lot. The cancer is overwhelming, so I'm going to deal with it. The map is too much. Oh my God, way too comprehensive. But it's comprehensive, and therefore I know I can go to it, right? So about 60% will go to the map. Since we added Hope AI, a lot of our patients just go to Hope. Hope AI is essentially a companion, AI companion that is trained on the map. Right. Once you have the map on your account, Hope knows where you are. And because Hope knows where you are in the map, all of the back and forth is happening in the context of your location on the cancer experience.
Okay. Interesting.
So that becomes why Hope is able to ground the conversation, help you get to the answer that you are seeking quicker than, say, Gen LLM. So that's one. The second thing we've done with Hope is we spend a lot of time making sure Hope talks to you like another patient. Hope's job is not to replace a doc, not our job. You have a doc, please have a doc.
Yes.
That's their job. That's not our job. Our job is to activate you, right? So we need to activate you. So we need to talk to you in a way that feels like we see you and we hear you and you're feeling right about it, right? So that's the intent. So that's the second piece. We spend a lot of time on that. The third thing Hope does is on side effects and symptoms. Our stance on side effects and symptoms is the following. We need to enable you, the patient, to understand the severity. Most patients are going to deal with nausea at some point in the cancer experience, right? So let's say you're dealing with nausea. The doc is probably going to, or the nurse, very high odds are they've given you a PDF document. It's in your portal. There's some brochure that you've gotten that says some amount of like, if you have nausea, do A, B, C, D, E.
Right.
If it hits this, call me. If it hits that, call us. If this happens, go to the ER, right? There's some gradation.
Right. So it's severity. Basically, the more severe that when you hit a certain severity, they ask you to reach back out.
Correct. So most clinics, most systems will give you some version of what I just talked about. The underlying body of information that most clinics are using is called PRO-CTCAE. It was developed by NCI, National Cancer Institute, for clinical trials. So what we did is we took that information, we translated it out the gate to patient-facing. So we didn't dumb it down, we just translated it, right? Because as a patient, the odds are I'm not going to say febrile neutropenia. I may say, I have a fever.
Yeah,
There's just we're not clinicians. How in the world will I know what the like clinical language is for insert symptom or side effect, right?
sure.
So we did the translation there. And we also did the translation on severity. So PROCDCAE has a baseline of grade 1, 2, 3, 4. So mild, moderate, severe, very severe for our language. So the very first thing Hope will do is help you grade it. There's no way we know what your grade is.
Right.
I can't possibly know that, right? But if we gave you, hey, mild nausea means this, moderate nausea means this, severe nausea means this, very severe nausea means this, which one is it?
Hmm.
You now can effectively tell and more accurately tell Hope AI what you are grappling with.
Nice.
Based on that response, Hope will give you the escalation for PROCTCAE. Anything that is grade 3 up, effectively, you need to call your doc.
Right. Right.
Right? Grade 3 up, you have to call the doc. There's no question about it. So Hope will flag that for you
Hmm.
kind of out the gate. So that's the underlying mechanism of what we've done with Hope AI on side effect and symptoms. The reason that's important is because what we are trying to do, again, is activate you, right? If you don't know that you're grappling with severe nausea, you may dismiss it.
Right. That's
You
right.
may not tell your doc. And the reality is you should tell your doc.
It's interesting. I love what you're doing because I go to the hospital for infusion every 3 weeks. And when I go in, they say, "Do you have any pain?" And I say, "I have neuropathy. Does that count?" you know? And they say, and the nurse looks at me and she's like, she needs to just fill in a card. And they put it on, a happy face scale. And they're like, "Where are you in this continuum?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not exactly pain. It's more like I can't feel them. So, do you want how extreme is my symptom? Or do you want
Yes.
pain specifically?" It's always seems a little bit odd, but what you've done with Manta Cares that you just described is that Manta Cares will describe what is happening at each stage so that you could look at it and say, "Oh yes, that's me. I fit in this bucket." And that's super helpful because that doesn't even happen at the point of care a lot of times.
It doesn't, and the incentives are actually important to talk about, right? Most systems will get paid because they're administering the survey, meaning that they're administering the pain scale, they're administering the insert scale, like that. There are all these scales. There are economic incentives to make sure that systems are administering it. Now, these tools, the pain scale, that they call EPROs, electronic patient reported outcomes. EPROs, I think, are critical because they help us maintain effectively quality of care. So I actually am a firm believer in EPROs. Here's where my issue comes in. These tools were built a long time ago.
Yes.
The world we live in is not that. So that's one. Number two, they were built way before the treatments we're grappling with,
Yeah.
right? So they don't necessarily reflect what you might be going through.
Mm.
Let's say you're on, I'm making this up, let's say you're on third line setting metastatic. The odds are you're on a drug that came to market in the last year,
Yeah.
which means that our society's experience of using that drug is effectively 1 year's worth of knowledge.
Right.
There is no way that scale that is being administered in the clinic is appropriate to that drug. It's just not because it was built 15 years ago. So that's just like this like funny misaligned incentive structure. I say that only to say that that's one of the reasons why I'm such a firm believer that we have to give you the patient, us the patient, and the caregiver tools. We have to, because otherwise we're gonna keep hitting up against a system that is constantly playing catch up to the latest and greatest treatment.
Very, very good point. I know that there are many new, like ADCs, for example.
Yes.
So many that this touches on something we spoke about earlier, which is that there are a lot of choices for patients now. It's not. We talk about standard of care as though it's one thing, but it's not. And in fact, I've I've seen differences because I used to live in San Francisco and then I moved to Vermont, and I've seen differences based on different coasts. On the West Coast, they tend to
Sure.
give you two different chemotherapies for metastatic cancer right out of the gate. On the East Coast, they're only going to give you one. Both are considered standard of care.
Yeah.
Um, so what you're saying resonates with me, and it resonates on another level too, which is there are now patients living very long times on drugs. And for many of those people, their life has extended beyond what was researched for side effects. So most of these drugs, they'll look at, well, quality of life and side effects for maybe 3 years or 5 years. But if that patient now is living 8 years or 10 years and they're still on that drug, there isn't any information besides patient reported outcomes
Sure.
that indicates, well, what happens to neuropathy, for example, when you're 10 years out and you've still been using that same drug? I had to go find out going to a conference and finding other people who could share that information. But it sounds like Manta Cares is incorporating that into what you're doing.
Yes. Yes and yes and yes. And one of the things that's not live yet, but we are actively working on it, is because now we have so many patients across the country who are using the tool. We also are able to start to see patterns, right?
Right.
And over time, our aim is very much to make those patterns available to the community, because you can imagine that, to the point I think you're making, and I think it's a absolutely spot on, is if we think about where we need to head in the world of precision medicine, we're looking at very targeted therapies for a very small set of patients, right? Lung cancer is, I think, in particular full of this, which is, let's just say I'm picking on something, you have a RET mutation, a couple of thousand patients in the country. Like, we're talking a very small. So if you're one of those patients and you're sitting and going, wait, how do I grapple with insert side effect? You're looking for a needle in a haystack to find
Right.
someone else like you,
Mm,
right? And
right.
and metastatic breast is going in the same direction. It's just lung is kind of ahead. And anyway, I say all this to say that because we are now supporting patients across the country, we're sitting in a place where we are starting to see patterns. And I think as patients will use Manta more, we will start to make those patterns that are more conclusive available to the community, so it feeds it back in. So you get to see that. Because I think that's also missing for patients is researchers will see it, and then there's a lag.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then it's just how do they share the information? Who shares it? Whose responsibility is it? And the issue is that it was no one's responsibility, but you have stepped in to take on that gap, which is amazing, really amazing. Let's transition that into preparing for appointments because I've been working with a couple patients recently who are trying to find their voice. And I love that you see as a core fundamental of what you're trying to do that you are trying to activate patients. That is so important. So here are patients, they want to be activated. They're, they really want to speak up and maybe they'll speak up to their doctor and ask for whatever it is. Let's say a new biomarker test. They've progressed, and the doctor is going to put them on another medication without ever testing to see if they have a new mutation, which, P.S., all the patients out there, you really need to be asking for new biomarker testing. Please do that if you have progressed on a drug.
Yeah.
So, the patient wants to go in there and they want to ask for a new biomarker test. Maybe they even want to ask for a new tumor sample to be done and analyzed if
Mhm.
it's been a while. Um, and the doctor says, no, we don't need to do that. I've got a drug for you. So now the patient is in this position of like, I got up the courage to ask and I was shot down. And there are very few patients, even strong people that I know that have been, you know, d- had leadership positions in their lives and they are not shrinking violets. Even those people have a really hard time saying, but wait a minute. Can we talk about this?
Mhm.
It's really hard. How can your tool help these patients in preparing for those appointments and for dealing with the issue of maybe getting shot down on something they'd like to advocate for?
Really, I mean, phenomenal questions. 30% of Hope AI's conversations are biomarker related.
Really?
Mhm.
Very
Up to
interesting.
30%, maybe about 5% is patient-initiated. So very low patient-initiated. The reason I say that is because you can imagine that sometimes I, patient, am asking a direct question, and sometimes Hope is surfacing it in response to something else I'm asking, right?
Sure.
So the vast majority is on Hope surfacing it.
Okay, so Hope, your AI tool, is serving up biomarker testing as
Correct.
an action.
Correct. Very often because it's appropriate. Because
Yes.
Hope is grounded on the map. If Hope is grounded on the map, Hope effectively infers that you might be at a point of progression or you're dealing with something. We see it early stages as well, by the way, not just metastatic.
Yes.
Um, so hope is surfacing. So that's one on awareness, right? Because before you can ask the question, you have to be aware that it exists, right? So that's like
Yes.
the first barrier. So hope is awareness. Hope and map are awareness. And then there is the question you asked about getting dismissed by the doc and then building up the courage to ask again. So before I answer that, let's talk about one of the healthcare metrics that is sometimes tracked. I say sometimes because it's not standardized, not everybody tracks it, not everybody knows about it. It's one of those like funny metrics.
Hmm.
It's called the honor rate. How often does a doc do what the patient requested? Non-oncology, it's actually really high. In oncology, we don't know, right? So we don't know. So I say
We
that
don't know because it's not tracked, or we don't. Why do?
and like if you think about incentives, there's not really a reason to track it. There's no system wide need, but it's one
Okay.
of those like loose metrics that you can look at, which is how much influence does a patient have on the doc effectively, right? That's effectively what you're looking at.
Right.
And the little bit that we've understood about honor rate is it's not about whether you asked, it's about how you asked.
Okay.
The language used matters a lot in honor rate. If the ask is quote unquote clinically appropriate, the doc will usually do it. So it comes down to have you as a patient gotten the language to be clinically appropriate to what you are grappling with to make that ask. Like I'll give you a really like I think we're like talking around progression, ESR1 mutation. I'm just going to use that as an example here, right?
Yep.
Metastatic breast cancer patient, ESR1, relatively new. Not everybody's doing it. Burden comes on the patient to ask. We've seen this like I don't know at least 20 times in the last month in our platform.
Right.
And
Right. Let me just pause for a second, just so that the listeners can understand. If you are an estrogen positive breast cancer patient and you are taking an aromatase inhibitor like anastrozole, and you are also taking a CDK4/6 inhibitor like Verzenio or Ibrance, when you take those two drugs together, a very, very high percentage of breast cancer patients develop an ESR1 mutation. And when that mutation arises, then there is usually progression of disease. So I just wanted to explain that. Okay, back to you, Samira.
so let's just use that as an example, right? It's relatively new. Depending on where you're getting treatment, it may already be in the workflow. It may not be in the workflow because it's coming out in the last like year and a half, 2 years. I forget exactly when it started. And now you have a lot of treatments. Right? It's not just about I found the mutation, it's that I found the mutation and I can treat it. Right? So now that's an outcomes problem, not problem, but it's a good thing for me as a patient. But as a patient, it's not just enough for me to ask about the biomarker. It's about making sure that the treatment choice is made available if positive.
Right.
So I go through that full chain to say that the Manta platform has been designed to one, give you the language.
Okay.
Right? Getting you the language is super important because part of the reason patients get dismissed is because we're speaking different languages,
Yes.
right? Clinicians are talking in a different language, patients talking in a different language. In progression, like the word progression is not common parlance,
True.
right? So when we look at sixth grade language, the word biopsy does not pass.
Right.
Right. So if you're looking at sixth grade as the benchmark, which is what we do use, unfortunately, not Manta, but like broadly healthcare users, you can't have a conversation with a doc. You just
Right.
can't.
That's my point. Oh my gosh, that's exactly the point, which is like we as patients have to better understand the language or you can't even have a conversation. Oh gosh, yeah, that's so well said. You nailed it. Yes.
So the most important thing is getting the language. So that's one. The second thing we've done is we see a lot of patients talk about the fear of talking to their doc.
Mm, yeah,
Patients do get dismissed.
yeah.
They do. That's just the reality. We patients get dismissed. Like I mean, I've definitely been there myself, and I'm relatively pushy patient. Definitely a pushy patient. I'm pretty sure I have difficult patient written all over my chart.
I mean, you do have a podcast called Patient from Hell, so let's just be clear about that.
I that's a funny story there, which we can unpack later. But I say that to say that we see it, right? We definitely see it in our data. And Hope's job is to help you understand, make peace with dismissal, validate it, because a lot of times you feel invalidated. You're like, oh, that can't be right. It's in my head. Some of it is accepting that that's just true.
Mhm.
Right? You might get dismissed like that. That's just true. Like sometimes it's just true, and sometimes it may not be true, right? Like depending on the situation. So Hope's job is also to like help you go from what we would call a negative valence and emotion to neutral. Because until you're at neutral, you can't activate.
Mhm.
Right? So if we don't help you go from a emotional state that is spiraling, as you can imagine, so many of us have been there. I've been there. Kind of, I can't even tell you how many times. You're overwhelmed. You're spiraling. The thoughts aren't clear. You're on a drug. Your brain is foggy. You're exhausted. You're sleep deprived. It might be 2 in the morning when your energy comes back. Like that, there's a lot of stuff happening that is on the what you would call negative valence side of the house, and getting you from there to neutral is actually a really really important step
Mhm.
in enabling you to take action.
Right. That's interesting. I had never thought about it that way, and I see I can really see what you're saying. If you're fearful and you're in a state of spiraling, you can't have a good, productive conversation, you know. But can Hope AI and Manta Cares give you the confidence to go back again by validating your thoughts? Like, can it provide you the research background to say, hey, here are the, 3 to 5 reasons why that might not be a bad idea?
We see that very, very often, actually, and I'm just using ASR1 as an example. We see that across the board. Sometimes the action you end up taking is not so much to send communication, but to schedule an appointment,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just need to get on a call with them. You may need to go back in, things like that. We believe, and I've seen this many times now, that patients get overwhelmed is when you're searching for information. The part that's hard is not access to it. The part that's hard is relevance.
Right.
Is this relevant for me or not? And how do I know?
Right.
And how do I then take that, let's just say it's relevant, how do I now communicate that to my doc in a way that I will be heard, or at least increases the chances of me being heard?
Mhm.
And we've basically gone and productized that inside Hope.
That's wonderful. I just interviewed Dr. Nathan Fowler, who's the chief medical officer at Boston Gene, which is a biomarker testing company. And when I was talking to him, I thought it was very interesting because he gave some suggested language for asking your doctor
Yes.
about biomarker testing. And he encouraged patients to ask the question, are you doing biomarker testing? And he phrased it because he said, look, when you ask this, it helps get the doctor thinking. It helps the doctor be like, oh, maybe I should do that. Instead of an accusatory, why aren't we doing
Exactly.
biomarker testing? And so I can imagine the language that you're coming up with for patients is going to incorporate a lot of that.
200% right. There are two things in that actually that are important. One is framing it as a question is crucial. It makes a huge difference, right? Because the doc, like our position on this is also like, yes, we have a podcast called The Patient from Hell, but there's a nerd reason behind that actually versus an antagonist reason. We actually believe that the doc is on your side.
Yes.
We actually fundamentally believe that. We also believe that patients get dismissed. Like those are contradictory statements. And reason we believe both is because very often what happens is the doc is actually trying to reduce the complexity for you because they see the overwhelm. Right? So that's just one thing the intention is to help you But if you patients show up to that appointment fearful, overwhelmed, and it's all fair because we're dealing with crap, what happens is the doc is switching from cognitive mode to emotional mode, right? Because a doc they believe they can't get through to you until you're neutral either,
Right.
right? So one is we are showing up in a certain way that causes the doc to react in a certain way. So that's playing out. The second thing that's playing out is also the 50% of our docs are burnt out.
Right.
That's just true. 50% of the clinicians are burnt out. Like, so the odds are they're exhausted, they're fatigued, they're going through their crap, they're trying to help us. The intention is in oncology, especially, right? These docs are coming to the table with such good intention that, like,
Yeah.
anyway, I say this to say that framing it as a question, super crucial. Assuming good intent on the doc side, also crucial, right?
Agreed.
Even if it's not, even if you are getting dismissed, right? There is this moment of like, yes, I am getting dismissed. I feel it. That's true. That's valid.
Right.
How do I get over that? How do I switch that? How do I switch that dismissal into true advocacy? One of the ways is to recognize that the doc may be dealing with their own crap. That's got nothing to do with you. And then asking the question in a way that enables them to make the call.
Hmm.
And then the third is specificity. I actually think asking minimum bar is ask about biomarker testing. For me, the actual bar should be, hey, aren't we at progression? What about ESR1 testing? Right? Like that's an example of a specific question because in the doc, let's just assume they know it. They're like, oh yeah, right. They may have a reason they're not doing it, right? They may be like, you know what, you're not actually at progression because what we're talking about is a quality of life saying the drug is actually working. I'm making up a scenario, right?
Right.
Like
Sure. Got
maybe
it.
a clinical reason why the doc is not doing it, or they may not have heard about it. They're like, wait, what's ESR1 testing? And they may dismiss you in the moment, but you planted the question. So now it's going to bug them because these are overachieving oncologists. We have to
Yeah.
remember that. These are overachieving oncologists, right, who want to get the right answer. So now you've planted the question. So the odds are they're going to think about it and they're going to call you,
Hmm.
right? So even if it doesn't play out in that moment of time, you've asked a question that's going to bug them because it was
Right.
right.
I think that's awesome, and I love that you, meaning a patient, could go to Hope AI in Manta Cares and say, "I want to ask my doctor about this blank, blank, blank. Can you help me phrase this question?" Maybe 3 different ways, because sometimes asking the same question, but
Yes,
differently in the same meeting could yield even a different result.
absolutely. And then I'll add to that, which is putting in writing.
Ah, yes. Yeah, the portal is your friend.
Ask your friend, again, as long as it's clinically relevant, right?
Yeah.
The key thing here is clinical relevance.
Mhm.
Right, that is truly, truly key because if you ask a clinically relevant question in the portal, the thing to remember is the system is now liable to respond to you
Right.
because
Now,
it's
just
irrelevant, right? So that's that.
can you just define so that people understand, just in case they don't know what clinically relevant means in this case, can you just define that for them?
Sure. Let's take early breast because that's probably more common, guys. Let's say you're early stage breast cancer, you're dealing with your during diagnosis, right? So you have a biopsy, biopsies come back, biopsy says hormone positive. The question is, what's the next step? Right? The next steps most likely include more imaging. They need to stage it, meaning they need to make sure that the cancer hasn't spread outside your breast. Staging can include an MRI, can include a CT scan, could include a PET scan, depending on the system you're getting treated, depending on insurance coverage, depending on mostly those two things. Okay, so now let's say the doc doesn't stage you. Let's say for whatever reason there was no more imaging, and you went back and asked, "Hey doc, shouldn't we be getting an MRI, a CT scan, or a PET scan right now?" The doc should have a really good answer why they're not doing it,
Mhm.
right? Because that is absolutely guideline, that is absolutely standard of care, that is a clinically relevant question. Versus, let's say you same point in time, you go back and ask, "Hey doc, can I do high dose vitamin C?" Very different,
Right.
right? Not standard of care. Not that it's a wrong question, not that they shouldn't answer it, just that it's not clinically relevant to that moment of time.
Mhm. It's, yeah, part of the standard treatment. So if you're asking a question that has to do with the protocol that you will or should be receiving, that question must be answered. And if you put it in writing in a portal, um, there's some benefits to that,
Yes, there
to
is some
having
benefit.
it in writing.
Yes, and it helps you, right? Because you can spend more time on it. As
Yeah,
opposed to
absolutely.
sit in a 15-minute appointment where my heart is racing and I'm, like, on the verge of tears and, like, I am like, I don't know if I can even speak," right?
Right.
Very different emotional states too.
I do want to ask you one more thing about Manta Cares because I think this is really important. So, according to the NIH, about 70% of Americans are willing to participate in cancer clinical trials, but only 7 to 8% of adult cancer patients actually participate. That is a massive gap. And I'll say, following on to that, that only about 9% of Americans report that they've ever been invited to a trial. So we have a lot of people being willing, saying that they're willing to participate, 70%. We have 9% saying that they've been invited, and we have 7 or 8% that actually do it. So we have, if you know about a trial, it seems like you do have people participating, but you have this huge gap. Can you tell me, is there an element of Manta Cares that's dealing with clinical trials, and how are you helping to bridge this gap?
Good question. I would give us a, I don't know, feeling great on that one right now, to be completely honest. Only because we've started not so much on the trial side, we started on the active treatment side, right? So standard of care guidelines. So we started at a different point of entry. Having said that, one of the things you should see in our platform if you are dealing with metastatic disease is pretty much every decision point will, one of the questions Hope is going to surface, one of the questions the map will surface is a trial appropriate for me? Right? Because in the metastatic setting, very, very often, the clinical trial is actually a treatment choice.
Mhm.
It's actually one of the options you should consider, right? Like early stage, I think is a bit different. Early stage, there's just more predictability. There's more, you're usually in curative setting. The drugs
Right.
work, there's data, right? So the reason to go into a trial in early stage is very different than metastatic. In the metastatic space, Manta at least believes that a trial is something you should consider at every single decision point. So it will surface, the platform will surface that. So that exists today. I am happy to give you my like hypothesis of the world as to why we have the gap, but I don't think that's the question.
Well, it's going to surface. I think what you're saying is you do have it built into the tool
Yes.
that there's like a decision point that it should be popping up if
Yes.
you're metastatic
Mhm.
as an option. And I would just further, and you can maybe elaborate on this, if you have had biomarker testing, which everyone should be doing, um, there are things in biomarker tests that come up that sometimes link back to a very specific trial. And if there is a match between a variant that you have from your biomarker test with a clinical trial, then a lot of times you can have some pretty outstanding outcomes. So tell me, can Hope and can your Manta Cares make those connections?
Really good question. One of the features that's also launching next week is document upload. So let's say you did a biomarker test, you got a report. The point you're making is supremely good, which is most, not all, most biomarker reports will include ancillary pages that highlight trials that are relevant to the biomarkers found or even what's called a VUS, a variant of unknown significance. Meaning, we don't know it's accurate, we don't know it's relevant yet, but it might be in the future, and therefore we should highlight it. So, with the document upload feature, you should be able to upload it and Hope will help you understand and interpret it. Right? So, that is coming. The specific feature that I think you're alluding to or talking about is not something live yet for us. It is on our roadmap, which is actual matching. And actual matching biomarkers is one element of it. The most common element is actually zip code, right? Because very, very often, one of the reasons, and this goes back to me not hypothesizing as to why you have a funnel drop off, but yeah. One of the reasons you see such a big drop off is because, yes, I'm aware of the trial. Yes, I'm interested in participating, but that requires me to fly to, I don't know, MD Anderson every week, which is hard.
Right.
right? And if you're sick and you're grappling with metastatic disease, or you're really exhausted, and I mean, average age in cancer is 70, right? Like, I may just want to spend time with my grandkids. Like,
Right.
it's just a lot. It's asking you to do a lot, right? So a zip code becomes really important. And so one of the reasons why we have not built matching yet is because to build matching right, you need to build in a couple of more things in there. And at that point, we do actually need your record.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If
Yeah.
you look at the Manta platform today, we never ask you for a medical record. We don't need it. The whole point is you should disclose only what you are feeling comfortable disclosing, right? Like that, I think from a privacy perspective, security perspective, like the entire platform is built on the you can tell us just about nothing about you and we should be able to help you,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
But for us to do trial matching right, we will
Yeah.
need a record.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we need to build out that infrastructure on our side.
Yeah, and then there, I think on Manta Cares, I saw there are organizations that you have that you support,
Yes.
and say, look, here's someone who's doing it well. Breastcancertrials.org is one of them for breast cancer patients. I'm also going to throw out there, the American Cancer Society has a new product that will do trial matching. It was started in the New England states and has just recently expanded to the entire country. And so they will get your medical record for you. They will walk you through this. And then they will also even help you with the lodging because they have Hope Lodges at some of the big medical centers. So they can even do kind of a bit end to end. So I see that, while it might not be a function that's baked in right now, you're making the connections, which is
Yes.
important. So a patient can go to Manta Cares, have this experience, get all of this great information, and then get passed off if needed for clinical trials to a partner organization, which is nice.
About 30% of the time, actually, we're passing you out. It's actually really high, meaning that we are very, very often making connections, right? Because you can imagine, like, we're talking trials, but the same use case, meal train, drug
Sure, like we don't need to reinvent the wheel for some of these things that are working, right? Like we just need to make sure that the patient, the handoff is clean, right? That the patient isn't get lost in the middle of this, in the midst of this. But yeah, I know I think that's fantastic. I would love to get you to just reflect for a minute on looking ahead 5 years. What would success look like for Manta Cares and for cancer patients 5 years from now?
for the patient in 5 years. I really hope that we're at a point where I don't think cancer is going to go away, but I do think cancer is going to move to a disease that should not be taking away our lives. And I
Yeah,
mean that both quantity and quality. And if we get there in 5 years, I think that's a huge win for us as a community. So that's one. Um, for Manta, our aim is very much that when you get diagnosed, regardless of type of cancer, regardless of where you are in the world, we want to be the tool that helps you. I say tool because I really do believe that the lack of platform and tool is one of the stoppers from enabling patients who would otherwise advocate for themselves, who don't end up advocating for themselves because they just don't have the right tooling.
wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for this wonderful tool. I mean, I know it's never a good thing that someone gets cancer, never ever. But from your experience has been born, and it really is something that I think every cancer patient can benefit from. So I encourage you to go out there and to check it out, Manta Cares, and I look forward to having you back on the podcast some other time because I'm sure that we could talk another hour easily.
Thank you so much for giving us a platform, Mary Beth. I really appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do for the community and for enabling people to find us. So thank you.
Thank you. And now, an important announcement. All the information that was provided today was for educational purposes only. I'm a patient, just like you. I am not a licensed or accredited physician, therapist, or clinical researcher. All information provided is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, therapist, nutritionist, or any other qualified healthcare professional.